Alrighty. Well, hello, Andy. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know that, as you've mentioned, you're literally in the path of a hurricane. So I hope everyone is safe. You look safe. You look great. And yeah, just could you please just say hi to the audience who are, graciously attending this Q&A of yours right now.
Oh,
Just
I'm
a
so
few
excited
words.
to be here, especially talking to you. Good to see you after such a long time. You're kind of really connected to Fanti. Every time you might be my Fanti, you're always appearing there, whenever my film comes around. I'm so excited to be a part of the Viet Film Fest. I'm wearing a 2005 shirt. So my first film, my short film, played, and they sent me a T-shirt, and I've kept this shirt, and I've only worn it this past year. And now with my first feature, I'm really excited to be able to be around still, see the festival still around. We're about the same age, maybe. But I'm so happy to be a part of the festival, especially with my first feature. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. What an evolution, right? And I guess that's also my first question to you. Do you feel like a Pokemon right now? No, don't answer, don't answer. That's not my real first question, by the way. So, but yeah, I mean, let's get down to it if you're willing.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure.
All right, your Fanti demands it. Well, I sound like a stalker right now, but sure. All righty. So let's start with the first question. What are your thoughts on Fanti's journey abroad? And by asking this, I have to do, if I may, do a little prefacing. So you remember, so since we last talked about it, and one of the things that really strikes with me, resonates with me in that interview that you did with me for Fangoria is that we both agree that films have second or third or what insert number kind of lives after its theatrical run. And well, thanks to you and all the support that Fanti has been receiving, it is living its second, third, or insert number kind of lives. And first of all, thank you for keeping us updated on that. But yeah, it seems fascinating on this side of the island. But I want to know your thoughts about it because you're on your side of the island, so to speak. So yeah, what are your thoughts on Fanti's journey abroad thus far?
Oh wow, I don't know. I think this is something that we would have a drink. We would talk about like because the movie's been out for a while now. It's played in Vietnam. It's had a different life there. And then you imagine when I spoke with you, we didn't see another life. So that was just kind of guessing if it's ever gonna happen. But now I guess like it's been exactly a year later. um the movie always plays different to different audiences, whether you're watching it with your parents or you're watching it with people you went to church with, you're watching it with a bunch of strangers who hate the movie. That's also exciting too. But then there are people you've never met before and are writing you emails about theories they have about the film and have no connection to you at all. Obviously we try to make a commercial film, so there are these measurements of success and failure. But I feel a little bit selfish to say this, but we made, I feel, such a great film. Something that I've never really seen before. And I'm always excited to see it play in front of audiences. We won an award recently. Actually, we were nominated for two others at two other film festivals, and we've just been getting a really great response over here. That's just America and Vietnam. And I think the Viet Film Fest kind of embodies this thing about the diaspora, Vietnamese American filmmakers, as well as Vietnamese filmmakers, but having that common identity and seeing how that is expressed through different filmmakers, through different lenses, through different movies. Um, they're gonna be hit or miss. I don't know. There's some of these movies that you see at Viet Film Fest that are playing again like 3 seasons, played very different when it came out. But what is the significance of it now, 20 years later, with an audience that doesn't even know that era of Vietnam anymore? Does it mean anything to them? Or maybe it means even more because they will never be able to see that world. And for me, I don't know. Like cinema for me, it's like we'll talk about this movie 10 years from now and you'll be like, oh my gosh, that was so embarrassing, that we played it at the festival. Like who was in charge of that? Was it Tony? Was it Tony? Was he behind it? Because he seems like the guy who might be behind it. Or it might be something that that people might remember. Like I don't know. I make movies because I don't see them. And I don't know. I think the movie is still playing. I think playing at VIFF, is just, I don't know, a return back home. um I'm excited by it anytime anybody gives me 2 hours of their time to just watch my film. Now I'm also teaching, and so my students are really curious about watching my film too, and they have no connection to Vietnam, but they have a connection to story, they have a connection to style. I'm constantly finding new audiences. I wish it would go to a bigger audience, but I think that's the beauty of, I guess, art form in general, is because it's not like constrained by just its pure release. You can play it other places, other platforms. um I don't know. I mean, I think you would know better. I think looking back at it, like, it's really hard to say. um it didn't do so well at the box office in Vietnam, but it won an award. It also won an award over here. We didn't have any distribution here yet, but I think the fact that we can play at VIFF, it's just a blessing to just be able to show your movie to people, right? Um, I'm constantly thankful for that. Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, Professor Andy Nguyen. Alrighty, well, I gotta make a note of that. Yeah, please don't, please be kind to me. Even though I'm not in your class, but your power. I know your powers. I know Professor's powers. And it can be intimidating. But anyway, yeah, I totally agree with you on that. As in, you know, you never know how the world is going to, perceive your baby. Literally, I talk to a lot of filmmakers or even just people who are involved with film production, and there's always this little melancholy or sort of lamentation, even, that when the work is done and obviously they treat it with care, with love, with every bit of them pouring into it, and now they're going to give it out to the world. They're not going to be able to, quote, keep what they have invested in, and now it's just going to be receiving a whole lot of different sets of lenses, different sets of opinions, and as the local saying goes, like trăm người ngàn ý, and I would add to that, like trăm người ngàn ý triệu ý kiến, like 100 people, 1,000 opinions, and a million more theories and verdicts. So it's just hard to see your baby going through that. But also at the same time, as we as we are discussing here, that can get your baby onto different paths of life, so different avenues that you never expected. And also for yeah, I if I may add, like you said that a Fanti coming here is almost like a full circle kind of moment, sort of. But you know, you've grown, and I would like to say congratulations to that. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor to be Vietnamese. I don't know. I think about it often, about being Vietnamese, especially you too, right? You spent a lot of time in America growing up. Sometimes we hate being Vietnamese. Sometimes we wonder, but I am so grateful to be, especially, how Vietnam has developed, how I have concurrently developed. And to have a film festival in our, cultural heritage is just such a fortunate thing, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and another, and just to add to that, I would like to say that every film or every single creation of art has its own playground. Just because it doesn't seem to be well received at playground A doesn't mean that you can always go down 2 blocks and find another playground that will be more fitting to your creation. So again, congratulations on what Fanti has achieved so far. And yeah, well, let's now, if I may, let's dive deeper into the film. Um, I think this is one of the questions that I've written down for our interview here in Vietnam, but I didn't manage to ask you. Um, so was the story in Fanti always going to revolve around the movie business, or were you thinking of maybe let's set it in contemporary dance world, or let's set in the sculpture art, other forms of art kind of universe?
Well, for me, it always started with social media, like technology. But like whoever wanted to be like, I was always thinking of a character, they have to want to achieve something. We always talk about that in stories. But like some of these social media stars, especially young people, they still dream of being a movie star, like somehow that's like legitimate. I mean, you see it in Kim Kardashian, you see it in like Paris Hilton, the American versions. But I always like connected with the social media aspect of it first. Like the movie thing was just more kind of something that came later in development when, we work in movies. We kind of know how those sets look like. We know the messiness behind it. We know how fake it is. We know how dirty it is. We know how, it's trying to be something that it isn't, So even in the same way, the movie business kind of represented what I felt social media did too, or how we represent ourselves online. So the movie business is kind of like, I don't know, it reminded me of what I saw in the social media world. This, you can make it big by just having one thing, get you and save all of your problems, all of your difficulties. We do that behind the camera too. It only takes one film, in order for you to get that 3 picture deal, and all of your 20 years of suffering was worth it. And then when you don't get it, is it not worth it? Have you just wasted, and there are these questions that young people, they're always shooting for, like, a lot of young, I'm not saying all of them, of course, but like a lot of young people, because of social media, have kind of been like, I can get rich by just doing this one thing. I get this get rich quick scheme. I'll just get a bunch of followers. I'll do affiliate marketing. And and then when they're not able to do it, what happens? Or what will it take for somebody to kind of do whatever it takes to get ahead? And what that changes in a particular person, that is intent on succeeding, and so the movie business has a lot of characters like that. I think the social media world is kind of like the younger version of that. Now even more easy, you don't need a camera anymore, you just need your cell phone, to get noticed a little bit. Sometimes that's good notice, sometimes it's bad. But for me, I've grown up in the film industry. I've the Vietnam version and also the Hollywood, seeing Spielberg movies version, and I'm just kind of caught in between. And I think my movie ends up being something like that, you know. But I think it exposes some kind of truth in the end. It's about the movie business, but it's about getting a peek behind the curtains more than anything, I think. Um, and so I hope that answered the question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
speaking of peeking behind the curtain, um, I do want to ask something because I've been making a lot of connections here in Saigon and Hanoi as well. Um, screenwriting connections, like screenwriters of all levels of experience. Um, how do you make an quote unlikable protagonist captivating? And I guess depending on the answer, somewhat, would you would you say that a character's unlikability is it something that you consider as natural or is it sculpted by others? So is it something that you've always, let's call it wickedness then? Is wickedness something that you've always, that a person has the capability to host? Or is it something that other people project onto you and then you get to wear it like some sort of apparel?
I think that's such a great question. I think it's a great question about process, a great question about how like people can connect to your movie. Um, I'm in general maybe drawn to people who make bad decisions, and I think, well, it's not just me, I don't think. I think we all make bad decisions. Do we think we're bad people? If I let you see me at my worst, and that's your first introduction to me, will you think I'm that kind of person? Especially for the character in this movie, she does something pretty bad. That we even question, why do I need to even follow this person? And I think it really depends on how you tell the story. But for me, people can do bad things, but at the end of the day, they have good intentions, right? They're doing it for a particular reason. And I think the bigger question is like, does the audience feel that reason? Do they feel like, why does this person need to do that bad thing? Because of what? Is that important enough to that character? And that's why you even watch a movie like Joker, and I really love how they tell that story. You take like a person you would call evil, you call him malicious, but then you just see them as someone who's been bullied. And then you grow to love them, and you love like someone who does bad things, who kills people. And I think like you even see in Joker, like by the time he kills somebody, you feel a little bit dirty for kind of rooting for the fact that he finally stood up for himself. Like if I phrase it like that, we in the end, I love Enyung, my main character. Of course, there are ways in which people might misjudge her, but I think if you've seen the movie, and I think people who are watching this might have seen the film, right? So we can talk a little bit about that. But
Oh yeah, sure, sure.
they would have, right? So we can ruin something like your relationship with your mom is complicated. Can you look at how the way I talk with my mom and see that we love each other like they do in the movies? I don't think so. I think like there's these nuances to a relationship, that there is actually love there, and it depends in the context in which you show it. But I think we're complicated in our relationship as Vietnamese people. I don't know about other families, but sometimes we nói hơi lớn, to get our point across, especially women. I think Vietnamese women, and I'm learning more, having lived there, but Vietnamese women have to become another kind of figure to, make things happen. You know what I mean? And so that might be a mother relationship. It might be an older sister relationship. It might be, I just think, that's a very complicated relationship. And it's hard to say, is a person completely unlikable? Like at the end of the day, I always feel it comes down to, you need to love the character somehow. You need to love the fact that they're trying to make up for their mistake. You need to love them for the fact that they regret the thing that they've done. You need to love them for the fact that they did that bad thing because they're so desperate that they had no other choice. It really depends on how you frame it. But if Joaquin Phoenix is playing the Joker as a, a maniac rather than someone who's hurt, maybe we won't love him, you know? And for me, I don't know. I think Thao Tam did such a great job representing, you know, real young Vietnamese people. And sometimes they're not expressing the way that a millennial like me would accept. You know what I mean? And so, like for me, I'm becoming educated about how young people communicate versus me, you know. And so for me, I kind of have to let go sometimes, and some things I see as not how I would communicate, or things I don't find likable, is actually how young people communicate with each other. um I don't know, that's such a long-winded answer to your question. How do they make it captivating? Tell a
No.
story, I guess, you know. um Make it emotional. I don't know, that's what I tried. I don't know, it works for some people, it obviously doesn't for others, you know. But I think it's about love. About at the end of the day, it's always about love. Do you love the character for any reason, or do you just hate them? You know, and I find them engaging to tell those stories because I make bad decisions, you know, but I think that I'm lovable. I think that I deserve to be forgiven. I can, you know, become a better person. I can change, you know. Um, but some other people, I don't know. Maybe
Ah,
they don't.
well, thank you for sharing that. Well, I guess in a way it's just I find that point really interesting that you mentioned that you have to love the character first, which I believe that that's actually a good approach because if you love them so much, I guess you build them to a point where, hmm, maybe they're too perfect and we aren't perfect. We're okay, I'll just say it. I guess we're really messy creatures.
Yeah.
And that's still being polite, by the way.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
really messy creatures. So if we love them so much, we'll get to a point where we'll try to see that, maybe there's something about this love or there's something about, a person, our character, exercising this love in a way that will cause them to be perceived as, again, unlovable.
Yeah.
And I think it also works for the other way around as well. You have to you have to find certain darkness of your darknesses that your character hosts, and so then you'll get to a point. Maybe there's a bit of light here, and so that 'cause I guess that just helps really reflect the messiness of us all. And well, that's what we are really. We're messy people.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're messy creations, more like.
Totally
And
agree. Yeah.
yeah. So and oh, you mentioned a lot about An Young's mom's character, whose name is Han, I believe, in the film.
Hang, hang like the moon.
Yes.
Hang like the
Ah,
moon.
Han.
Yeah.
Han. I'm so sorry. Yeah, all right.
That's okay.
So that's so yeah. I think it's good to it's a that's a good jumping off point to the next question as well. How was it working with actors of really different generations, and also, if I may say, like popular to an audience of different generations as well? Because we have Thảo Tam who's known after Anna Victor Vũ, Dreamy Eyes, Mắt Biếc, and Lê Khan. I mean, where to start with her accolades and her claims, So I guess I'll just boil it down to a screen veteran then. So yeah, how was it working with, actors of different generations and also popular for, different audiences as well?
Oh, I consider it like the most fun thing to do in the world, you know. Obviously, there are different approaches in working with both of them, but there are so we I just love our cast, you know, and I have to thank HK Film. I have to thank my producers for allowing me to spend so much time in casting and finding the best people for these roles. I think that's part of the beauty of returning to Vietnam is like my ability to even work with that spectrum of actors. You know, we don't have like the education in acting as we do in the US, but what you get in return is just a lot of different tools that you can use in your film. So, you know, working with young people has its challenges. Um, but working with older people comes with certain ease, you know. I think I kind of come into it a little naive, you know, and I guess my naiveness helps is that coming to Vietnam, I didn't know who anybody was. you know? And I just saw them as a person that could be in my film. Of course, I did some research, but I try not to watch too much of what they've done before and just taking them at face value of what they could work with me. Because I'm kind of a big wild card in terms of working with as a director, is because I want to work with the actors and I want to guide the character to how the story should be told. And we have Ju Hwang's son in our film too. We have Ho Tuang, who is incredible too, who is also Tai Ngang, from a model, a fashionista, but she comes into a lot of experience in terms of acting based on how she is as an individual, as a person. Um, all of these, even Ju Hwang's son, who's like a veteran in our industry too, but in comedy as well. But when he steps on set, he's just ready to work. And he'll like, even from me, like I just didn't know who these people were when I came to Vietnam. And so I would just not even apologize for the way that I work, because I only know how we work in the US in terms of working with actors. And we really we kind of work like kind of a bit of a theater approach. We spend a lot of rehearsal time. We ask a lot from our actors. We ask them questions. We ask them to think about their character. And for some people, they don't like that. And so it's strangely, young people, they really don't like the fact that we're asking them questions that they may not know the answer to. And some of the older actors are really excited by the fact of getting to work with a foreign director, where they usually come onto set, and a lot of directors in Vietnam, they just expect the actor to figure it out. You stay over there, I'll stay over here, I'll call action, louder, softer, come closer to the camera, and it's just like this shouting, when in the US, like the way that we prefer to work, I mean, most sets that I've worked on prefer to work is to be close to the actors, and it's trying to shape the movie around them. And so for a lot of people, they didn't like that in Vietnam, but for some random people, like older people, even they kind of took it as an opportunity of like, I want to steal this guy's approach, and find a way, because she's now teaching as well, of how he's approaching acting, rather than seeing me as a person trying to change her process. When I met with her, I said, how can I best work with you? I know you've worked with Dun and Home, like don't even mention me. How can I work better with you? And what she said was like really surprising to me, is just like, I would like to work the way that you would like to work, and I just was so welcomed by that. I spent 5 days living with her in Hanoi. It sounds like the most awkward thing to do when someone offers you, but I thought that was the only way I could create a connection with her. We watched movies. We talked about moms, Vietnamese moms, sometimes having to be hard with our children, sometimes having to play the bad cop, sometimes having to do whatever it takes to make sure somebody you love succeeds. These kinds of things, talking with her and having pho and having her cook for me. Oh my gosh, she's an amazing cook. It just, everyone gives you different access to them as a person. And for her, she let me in. And some other people like only want to see me on set. Some other people might go through the rehearsal process and think it's completely useless and just smile at me. There's just like this range of generations, but it's different approaches of working too. But at the end of the day, I'm so grateful to all of them. And I think only being in Vietnam can we get to do something like that. Here in America, to work with actors of that caliber here, it's just, I don't even know if they would ever work in a movie together. But here, Chilekan was just so accepting to someone who never acted before. She was just so open with her process. And I just felt so grateful. Just for me as a director, my actors are like 80% of what I do. What they do is just everything. I'm just there to take credit for it, when I don't deserve it. And I'm just so thankful, because they're just giving themselves who they are in front of the camera. And I just feel so lucky that they're able to give that to our film. Yeah. um I would do it a million times. I don't want again. I love working with actors, yeah, especially Vietnamese actors.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. And just a bit of trivia for the audience, but our screen veteran, chị Lê Khan, she's She played Juliet in a Vietnamese rendition of Romeo and Juliet. So I was just like, when I read that article, uh, this was when your film came out, by the way, and they were doing like pre-buzz releases, articles, coverages, and profiles. So I came across that article that Chị Lê Khan used to be like Juliet, and my jaw was missing. I was issuing an APB for my jaw. Took me a while to find it though. So it was just like, so thank you for sharing about your experience working with her. And wow, she seems like a really not only like a great somebody awesome to work with, but also somebody fantastic for you to make a connection to be around as well. So yeah. Awesome, awesome. So, speaking of speaking of acting and filming in a very different environment, as you've mentioned in your previous answer, what was the one thing that you wished you would have known beforehand? Filming Fanti here in a new environment, and working with a different set of different crew members, of course, but more importantly, I guess, different set of working culture or a different film going culture.
Hmm. Oh, it's so interesting. Well, I've been making movies in Vietnam since I was 16, and I like my first film played here, so that's almost 20 years of making films in Vietnam. But Vietnam has always changed, like even if you've been living there all of your life, like the way the industry worked even last year is not how it works now. And I lived 9 years in Vietnam, consecutively, but I had been making films, 15 years prior to that, you know. But how would I, it's really hard. It's such a great question, because when you're in the edit room, I think for any director, like that's probably the most depressed maybe any human can be, is like when you're watching like all the things and realizing like, did I just mess it all up, like what? And then you always think like, if I did this, if I didn't hire this person, if I didn't do that, then this would be a masterpiece, and then your movie slowly comes together and you figure it out and you regret like ever thinking those thoughts, why would you ever say something like think something like that? But for me, like I had such a great team on my film, from HK Film to Latte to the producers that I had. I had so much time of prep. I also had the lockdown to be like, kind of paranoid that I'll lose all of my investors, but also like having that space of like suddenly the world has shut down and Andy can just focus on making the movie with whatever resources that he had, and so looking back at it, like I literally don't regret anything. I think everything that's on camera is the way the world allowed it to be, and I think like that's the case with any film that we make. It's just with whatever you were given, that's the truth. You know what I mean? That's what had happened. And if I were to go back, I honestly wouldn't want to make the movie, again, because it only could have happened if those things happened. What would I want to know before? I don't know that it might affect my relationship with my girlfriend. I'm married to her now, but like when you're making a movie, you're kind of a crazy person. You don't eat, you don't bathe, your hair goes long and you don't care, and you also like you don't do the dishes, you don't walk your dog, and who's there to pick up after you? Is someone to support you. Usually it's nobody, and you just live in filth because all you're doing is just stressed out about the movie you're making. I wish I had known that, but being in Vietnam and all of the difficult parts about it is kind of what makes it fun in a way. You know what I mean? And even, starting out in Vietnam, not being fluent in Vietnamese, and, to directing a movie and speaking, I don't speak with Chị Lê Khan in English, I don't speak with Dylan in English, you know, like I don't speak with, you know, it's just something that you got to just man up to, level up, man, you know, like, and I think that's what filmmaking, I hope, is for a lot of people, is like, you have to become a better version of yourself to tell a better story, you know, or figure yourself out, or put yourself against, you know, some hardship in order to do something that other people wouldn't do, you know? And so, what would I have known, you know, that I would just, you know, become such a nuisance to, you know, people I care around me, you know, I just neglected all of my friends, you know? Um, but I think all of the things that were difficult about the filmmaking process, I just feel fortunate to even be in that position, you know? Um, you know, Vietnam is developing industry. I can't expect more out of it. You know, I got to do basically a dream project, you know, my own script with, you know, top producers and distribution companies in Vietnam, you know. I couldn't have written it better, you know. I just feel so lucky. There are a lot of things that, you know, I wish Vietnam was more developed in, but I chose to make a movie in Vietnam, you know. And so I take it as it is, you know. Um, but I wish, yeah, I could be more of a better human being to those around me. You know, that counts. You know, that really counts.
All right, thank you so much for that. I mean, don't we all, you know? And again, you know, to re to bring back the to recall the you know, the baby context. You know, you were caring for a baby. That's not actually like a physical baby, and when you're doing a film, so it you were a parent. You were learning to be a parent, and to a very and to a particularly unpredictable child, if I may say. So yes, so I thank you for sharing your stresses and struggles. But hey, when you look back at it now, if anyone asks you that, you know, have you directed a film before, and you can say yes, yes I have, yes I have, rather than it was just like oh I wish I had, because I had this idea, but I didn't do it, so I wish I had. But you know, so congratulations again. And yeah, so now perhaps a more positive version of our previous question. Now here's something that I believe that something that you know, it taps into something that you know well, for that may have helped for Fanti. So did your experience as an editor, and you've been editing some major Vietnamese hits, by the way. So did your experience as an editor help with Fanti, or to be more particular, help you with the directing position of Fanti?
Yeah, I didn't know that though. You know, like I even remember, like, after I graduated from Columbia in film school, you know, I didn't know what to do. You know, you just do random gigs, and you know, I came to Vietnam, and you know, someone asked me to edit their feature, and I was like, I'm not really an editor, but I was like, what's the best way to kind of get to know somebody or a place is to just do a project there. It's just, you'll meet so many people, they'll get to see who you are by how you can express yourself. And so I just said yes without even knowing, you know. And so, I mean, I've cut stuff before, but I've never really positioned myself to want to be an editor. But as soon as I saw, I mean, I just landed maybe not even a week or 2 weeks, and they were shooting this film. I came to set. They said, we just got rid of our editor. Would you edit? And I said, maybe, you know. And then I went home and I figured out, what does it take to edit a feature? Read some books and was just like, all right, I don't know how else I'm going to get a job here in Vietnam, just moving straight from New York City and not really knowing that many people here. So I just said yes. And I just tried to be the editor that I would want as a director, you know? And so what that meant is, like, I really studied other people's processes, and, you know, and then I realized, like, actually, I love doing this more than anything on set. You know, in Vietnam, sometimes we work like 24-hour days, you know. Things are much better now. But like when you're a first AD or like you're just around the camera, you don't really get to see necessarily what the director is doing. You know, you're not really telling the story. And a lot of people, especially in the editor position, are met with a lot of directors that are looking for an editor that will help them bring a layer to the storytelling process that they don't have, or are curious about another perspective. And so that immediately you put in a one-on-one room with Phanya Nhật Linh, you know, one-on-one room with and Victor Vũ, who are very, you know, take into account about your creative decisions about how to tell their movie. You know, and when you have that kind of power as just some dude who just moved here, you know, suddenly you have a lot of creative influence on a movie. You know, you don't have the final say, but when the producers kick the director out of the edit room and they leave the editor there, suddenly he's the only one there, you know, to defend the director's intentions while also balancing what the producers want. And so that makes you uniquely conditioned for those kinds of disputes that you get, you know, between like where the movie should go and how you as an editor, you can't pick sides. You just need to make it work. You know what I mean? And you can't shoot a lot more. You just got to deal with what's there. You know, and I think I came to Vietnam in a time where like most editors, and I understand why they think that way, is they just, you know, like when I first came to Vietnam to edit a movie, like they didn't even give me all the footage. They didn't even sync all of the sound. They just gave the director mark take, which is usually the last take. But I'm a director. When I'm on set, I have no clue which take is the right take. Like I don't even remember if like the first way they said the line on the very first take is the best versus the last. I have no clue, you know? In the edit room, we kind of shape everything. And when you come from that perspective of I need to watch everything in order to figure out what to make best of whatever you did, rather than look at a script and try to force whatever you guys shot to be the script. And maybe the script wasn't even good to begin with, you know? And then we're just in this long circle of, okay, now what do we do? You know, and they just look at the editor. And so when I started to tell people that I wanted to direct, a lot of people had already seen me able to handle situations that directors would be handling, you know, and that's what I was always positioning myself to do. And I think in Charlie Nguyen, I think in an interview, he had said something about if someone were to replace the director in the middle of a shoot, what position would that be? And he said editor. And I totally get what he means, is because we have this bigger picture view of how to make the final product. How can you come away with material you shoot on set to help you in the edit room, not as an afterthought, but as having one foot in the edit room, one foot on set. You know, it's just kind of an approach thing. And when I came to Vietnam and I was mentioning this to young people, they all were like, "Oh yeah, let's do it like that." You know, but when you work with older people, they're more of like, "Andy, you don't understand Hollywood filmmaking?" I was like, "Oh no, I don't." You know, tell me. You know, I don't know. You know, all I know is like to make the best with whatever we got, right? And like I've been offered jobs as an editor, like because of some of the success of the movies I've cut, to cut like remake films where they want to cut verbatim. This is what happens in the first movie. Why are you not cutting like that? And then I'm just wondering, well, what creative influence am I giving you? Pay some other guy who might be doing that much better than me. You know what I mean? So I think like that gave me an opportunity as an editor to just show my creative process. And I think through that, other people, I think a lot of my investors had seen my work in as an editor and given me that trust when I tried to step up and find, you know, financing for my first feature. Yeah, so I think it definitely
Awesome.
did help.
Awesome.
Mm.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I mean, it's just with your experience as an editor and then you moving up a director, I mean, there are few chances in the industry. Okay, let me stretch that to in life where you get to be reflective. So there you go. Like you're a director and you were engaging in the footage, but now you're an editor where you have to do a little bit of where you have to disengage in order to see the whole. So it's just you get to check yourself. And I mean, where else? Like where else or which other avenues will allow you to do that, basically? So I mean, you said that directing is a new skill that you get to pick up, but Uh, Here's one thing that I would like to ask you though. Was sound something that you believe that you are like subconsciously talented in, and then you get to exercise it in Fanti? Because one of the more striking things about Fanti that I've noticed is the audio design, or the audio work in general, and it just really captivates me. And earlier you mentioned Dylan as well. So could you talk more about the audio design in Fanti,
Oh, sure.
please?
Shout out to Vic, my sound design. Shout out to Zach, my composer. Shout out to Dylan, of course. Shout out to Nodi. Um, it's just a dream, the people I got to work with, in terms of the sound and music in the film. It really sucks because in Vietnam we don't really have that calibrated of speakers in our district on our exhibition, so like it didn't sound so good at even at the premiere, you know. um, we spent so much time building the movie with sound and music. Um, we built it from pre-production even, you know. We even all of the music, I mean, to Lynn's song, she made like 6 versions of that song, and we ended up using 3 versions of it in the film. You know, she even kind of, the actors were listening to her music while we were shooting those scenes. You know, like some of the score was already, you know, composed, and the actors in the club are dancing to the actual music that is in the soundtrack, you know. But the sound design in specific, that I worked a lot with my editors first, you know, my offline editors who are just playing around, you know. Shout out to Un and Han Kira, which I think are the best editors in the industry. And I say this as a former editor, you know. Hang used to be my assistant, but I think that she's more than capable of being a great feature editor. But they laid the groundwork first, you know. And I wouldn't be fair to take a lot of credit for that, because a lot of the things are their ideas too, you know. And they just really got into what I was trying to create, you know, using, you know, like, I don't know if people can tell, you know, we use sounds of like snakes, we use sounds of like mouses clicking, you know, we use like notification sounds, you know, we use your alarm clock sound in a moment of tension, because every morning you're just like so thrown off by this Apple default alarm sound, you know, that just makes me get the heebie jeebies. You know, like playing on the context of way we hear sounds in our world, and then having a score that's just tribal, you know what I mean? That is just completely juxtaposed with that, and represents kind of the soul of the character a little bit more. We always tried to play with the sound, you know, especially in a movie like ours. Like initially, the inception of it is like making a movie in Vietnam. You can never make a straight horror. Now you can, you know, but that was only like the last 3 years you can show like gore. And so much of like our kind of like suspense had to be things like you couldn't necessarily see. Like
Mhm.
it's sometimes better to just hear it, you know, like even if like you key a car, you know, like keying a car, like if you Google it, it doesn't even look that scary, you know what I mean? Like keying a car, it looks like chalk on a car, you know. But like the sound is what really gets to you. But the sound that we use in the movie is not even the real sound of like a keying of a car, but it's really like taking like pieces of metal and just like scratching it on chalkboard, you know, and really getting you to just cringe at like that thing. That is just like trying to play it out, like trying to get people to feel emotional about what's happening, and not just it being visual. I think like maybe Vietnamese people tend to like visual more, you know, and I think that we can
Mhm.
see that in the box office recently, like those very visual, aesthetic, you know, gore things are things I think that people are getting more. But I was hoping to really mess with people, you know, like even Quỳnh Hương, it plays throughout the whole film, you know. Chị Lê Khan is actually singing the song repeatedly through the whole film. Her ringtone is Quỳnh Hương. You know, it's also echoed in the neighbor is saying it as he's leaving. Like people don't never pick up, but like this is in the sound design while we're shooting, while we're doing post, we're sneaking these things in there so that when you watch the movie again, you realize, oh, we've been telling the story all along. We've been telling you who the Fanti was all along, even the way we introduce the character. And, it just depends if it even works with people, but we do that all with sound design. We do it with the image as well. But with sound is that other layer that you get when you're looking at something else. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just, I don't know. There's just so much to it. And I really think my collaborators, my editors, um, especially my sound team at Sigan, they're world class in Vietnam. Like, I think people look at Vietnam's industry and think like, are you shooting in rice paddies with like lights from like candles and stuff? Like, we work with like some world class technicians, especially in sound, in music. Like, I don't know. If I even shot a movie here, I would try and go there and design it, and edit it. It's just so many artists that I got to work with, especially Vic. Like, it's just I just feel so sướng, người Việt they say that, I just feel so sướng, sung sướng, it's just so, like, so amazing to be able to work with these Vietnamese people, and they're young, and they want to collaborate, and they just love that opportunity where a director says, have fun in this space, um yeah, sorry, maybe I answered too long,
That's
but I just loved our sound.
No, it's that was a perfect answer. And the audience, well, that was a masterclass on movie magic, It's not just visual, it's audio visual as
Yeah,
well. So and a very wholesome answer, I guess, to round out what has been hopefully a very wholesome Q&A session as well. So, yeah, with that, I believe our the Q&A for Fanti can conclude. So, again, Andy, thank you so much for sharing about the film, and where the film is now, or how the film came to be and all that sort of, like good, great stuff. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And yes, and with that, I think I am going to continue blasting the Linza more theme for the rest of the day now. So, if you're gonna see me on the road like behaving like Jake Gyllenhaal in Demolition, I mean, I don't get I don't care. I don't care. That's my jam. That's my club anthem. That's my shower anthem. Whatever. So thank you so much for bringing this experience to us
thank you,
here in Vietnam, and then now at Viet Film Fest. Thank you so much.
thank you.